Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast Super One. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
and today is episode 208 of Podcast Super One, youtube.com/@Super1Studios. Guys, it's the best place to consume all the content. If you didn't know, listeners, let's be honest, you probably did not. We are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. There they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Kapow. Daniel, it's 208. We have been on the Acolyte and the House of the Dragon kind of kick lately. And we're taking a back seat to both of those because we are on, I don't know, we're like 19 days away at the time of this recording, maybe less, honestly. 13 days away to Deadpool and Wolverine. The next, I think the only Marvel Studios movie this year, 2024. And
You might say it's the new hope of the Marvel Universe at this point.
yes,
I mean, it is what I think a lot of us are hoping can at least somewhat right the ship. Just give us a really good movie, please.
there is so much pressure on this movie and on the studio to deliver. And
yeah.
more so than it, like, yeah, even on a meta level, which again, maybe Marvel Jesus can save us. And to honor that for 208, we are doing a retro review, which we haven't done in a long time. I think the last retro review we did was Logan, actually, Daniel.
Wow.
I could be wrong on that.
Wow.
Back in the COVID days.
Hugh Jackie, man, that's what does it. He comes out with a
Yeah.
superhero movie, and we can't help ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. And so we're back talking Deadpool 1. At the time of this recording, Daniel, have you watched Deadpool 2 for the first time yet?
I have not yet. I've only seen Deadpool.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, listeners, we will also be talking about Deadpool 2 before Deadpool Wolverine comes out. And, of course, we'll have a spoiler cast for Deadpool Wolverine. As we're talking about this right now, I have Deadpool playing on mute, of course, on the screen next to me. And it's one of those things, I watched like the first 5 minutes of it before the podcast was recording. And I watched this movie earlier this year. And I watched it again on the drive earlier this year. So I've seen it twice again already this year. But I watch it probably once or 1.5 times every year since it's come out.
Wow.
It's
The first
easy to
one.
watch. The first
Yeah.
one. It's
Yeah.
easy to watch.
Yeah.
It's short. And it's the rewatchability it's so much, I think. And so I remember watching this movie when it came out on Valentine's Day in 2000, I want to say 16, maybe 15, 16. It was 16. And I just I love this movie. I love Ryan Reynolds as his character. I remember when X-Men Origins Wolverine came out, we had that Abomination version of him, which is mocked in this and in future installments. And I remember thinking X-Men Origins is like one of the worst movies I ever saw superhero wise at the time. And I was like a high school Donovan, so I was pretty critical of it. But Deadpool will come out and it was great. Everything about an accurate Colossus to just the humor and all these things. And it's really, I had a love for Deadpool beforehand, but now I really do. So what's your thoughts on Deadpool 1?
Yeah. You know, it's a movie I always wanted to see and just never, things kept getting in the way. I kept seeing it on Hulu even years after it came out, and then I'd try to watch it, and then I had like the Hulu with ads, and so like the first time the ad would come up, back, no, I'm not watching commercials.
Wait, this is not the first time you ever saw it.
Oh yeah.
Wait, I thought you were rewatching the first one.
Mm-mm.
You never saw Deadpool until just now, till like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay.
I know. I've been behind.
Oh
I've
my
been behind.
goodness.
I know.
All right,
I know.
now I was interested in this podcast, Daniel, but now I'm very interested. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Go on.
overall thoughts, I really enjoyed it. I was somewhat surprised. It makes total sense when I think about it, but I was somewhat surprised how kind of self-contained it is, and how much it just kind of the plot is very simple and very like just it's not complicated. He's trying to get revenge on the guy that turned him into Deadpool, essentially, right? And so the humor, fantastic. Ryan Reynolds, it does feel like he was born to play this role. It's like it is it's how he has acted in so many other roles before. It just fits. It's like it's the Ryan Reynolds typecast is Deadpool. And so it just his comedic delivery is always perfect. The fourth wall stuff is amazing as always. The violence is great. You know, it's so bloody, it's so gory. It reminds me of Logan in that way. You know, you're just seeing heads chopped off and blood and you know, and everything everywhere. Yeah, like I said, I thought the plot, like, it kind of surprised me. Like, at first, like, you know, when we do the first flashback and then we kind of are going back between like present and future of like, I guess just being used to normal superhero genre movies, I was expecting, you know, Deadpool to have to save the world or something, you know, like, or like become, you know, like that kind of thing. And so when that didn't happen, it was both surprising, but also made it more interesting because it's not, in that way, it even feels different than a typical superhero movie, right? It's just, this is just about Deadpool and what he cares about and nothing else. And I think that's really interesting and fun. I loved the interactions with the X-Men and the jokes that they made about, like, I loved his Charles Xavier jokes were great.
Yeah, which timeline? Yeah, talking about
yeah.
that's the great
is
thing
this Jay
about
McAvoy?
Deadpool.
Is this McAvoy or Patrick Stewart? I'm not, yeah.
Which
Like,
timeline are we in? That's great.
it's
That's
so
fantastic.
good. It's so much
Yeah.
fun, and it's like it just makes it again stand out and feel like this really unique superhero flavor. And so yeah, I mean, like it's like I don't really have a lot of critiques for it. I feel like it's a movie again where it 100% accomplishes what it sets out to do, right? It is a fantastic introduction to the Deadpool character that also gives you just enough origin story to like understand him. But that's not really what it's about. It's more about just you being with this character and understanding who he is and why he's like he is and all that kind of stuff, you know? And so it's like I don't have a lot of critique for it, again, because I just feel like it's a movie that knows what it is, it knows what it wants to be, and it nails that. And it doesn't try to be anything more than that. And so it's just like, bam, it's Deadpool. And it's, I think, it's such a good standalone movie. You know what I mean? It's such a good, just little, like, I think, like you said, it's so rewatchable because it's just so like, it's self-contained. It's a good plot. It's funny. It's got good action. What else do you want? You know what I mean? It's kind of the full package. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to Deadpool 2 and Josh Brolin and all that stuff. I just realized for some reason I knew he was Cable, but I think having just watched X-Men 97, realizing, oh shit, Cable, that's who Cable is. The Cable's like Jean Grey and Scott Summers' son from the future. Like, I knew about Cable, but for some reason when I heard, oh yeah, Josh Brolin's Cable, I was like, okay. But then, like, after watching, I was like, oh, he's Cable. And what's funny is they talk about, like, he talks about Cable being in the next movie at the end of Deadpool 1. And I was like,
well, I think that of course it's the after credits, right? And yes. I think Ferris Bueller's Day Off was the first ever movie with after credits.
Oh, okay.
And so they mocked it. So it's a perfect mix of, yeah, who we're going to cast. So maybe it's who do you suggest to cast as Cable?
I thought he suggested Josh Brolin, but maybe
it was a female. I think he suggested.
Okay. But he says, like, we're gonna get Cable. You know what I mean?
And already Cable.
Yeah,
they had no idea at the time.
And then and then, like, I'm sure it was like, well, we hope so, but there's no guarantee, right? But they did it.
It was,
and just knowing that was coming is fun. And so yeah, I mean, I knew I would like Deadpool. I knew it was going to be up my alley. I knew it was going to be funny and fun and superhero and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't expect it to be so well crafted in some ways, I guess, where it just, again, it just feels like the director, the writer, the actors, they were all on the exact same page. They all knew what this character should be, and they nail it. You know what I mean? And so I'm really excited. I mean, I was already excited for Deadpool Wolverine, right? But now I'm just like, oh my gosh, this could be like a moment if they do it right. You know what I mean? In like the superhero genre, you know what I mean? Like there's a chance for this to be a like kind of a cultural thing if they nail it right. And I think especially with all the fourth wall they're going to be doing with like the Fox properties, like in some ways this movie will be like the in memoriam for 20th
It
Century
will.
Fox.
It will.
And yeah, so I love Deadpool 1. I'm 100% on the train, and I'm ready. I'm gonna probably watch Deadpool 2 this week or this weekend, and then I'm so pumped for the Wolverine movie.
Well, I have a lot to talk to you about right now.
Let's do it.
So let's do it for one. So yeah, so I'm not sure you knew this. I think you did, but I think probably most of our listeners know this. But there was a test footage of Deadpool. It was like a 6-minute scene, and essentially it was the scene when Deadpool, at the opening of the movie, where he drops into the car and the slow motion stuff, or him like killing all the people.
Mm.
So they had shot that with Ryan Reynolds as the voice of it. It was essentially a CGI test footage, and they shot it, they showed it to the studio said no. This was after Deadpool, or after X-Men Origins Wolverine, which, of course,
So
was
they were
panned
like,
by a lot of
Deadpool's
fans.
bad, is how they interpreted that.
Well, they're just like, it's not gonna work. Well, it got leaked, the test footage, it got leaked on the internet. The rumor has been for a very long time that Ryan Reynolds is the one who leaked it, and he has made comments and suggestions that he was the one who leaked it. But anyway, it got leaked, and the response was huge. They were like, "This is what we want." Like, Deadpool is a huge character, invented in the '90s. I can't think of his name now. Holy crap! The guy who created Deadpool, it's kind of blowing my mind. I can't think of his name.
Well, and he's a big Spider-Man partner, and so he, if you like Spider-Man, Deadpool.
Well,
so he's one
X-Men
of those, like,
was
known
huge
by
in the
association.
'90s.
Yeah,
It was absolutely huge in the '90s. It's gonna blow my mind until I figure out what's his fucking name. Or the guy who made it, I can't think of it. Anyway, it was a big deal, and so eventually the response was so big they just couldn't ignore it. And so they gave Tim Miller, the director, his first time director for this, I believe, but he was a visual effects guy beforehand. He was really, really, really big in the visual effects, and like he was known for that. As like a supervisor or something like that. And so, but essentially, that's why they kind of cut down so much on the cost. I think it's like an $80 million budget. It was a $58 million budget, right? Which is pretty low for this kind
especially
of movie.
nowadays. But yeah.
Oh, especially even then it was low. So $58 million, and it ended up making $782.8 million.
Yeah.
Talk about a return. And
Yeah.
at the time, it still is actually, it was the highest opening ever for a rated R movie. Deadpool 2 is right below that. So it didn't open up quite as much as Deadpool 1, but it holds number 1, number 2 spot. And Joker holds the highest grossing rated R movie of all time at $1 billion. So Deadpool 1, yeah, I mean, it was a big deal for the studio, especially at a time when X-Men First Class came out. They had done with X-Men 3, X-Men Origins, and it was just kind of this weird, like, these movies are doing well, but they're not doing as well as, say, Iron Man and The Dark Knight and those kind of stuff. And so and Avengers had come out in 2015. And so this movie comes out, and for a rated R character by itself, it's a huge, huge milestone and accomplishment for the studio, whatever. So, kudos to them. One thing, I don't know if you know this or not, but when we were in DF1 with Mike Gunter is passing out. I'm not sure how he got these, but he was passing out, like, basically for your consideration scripts, which they were just like, do you remember that? They were condensed down. They were not full page, like 9 by 11 page size, but they were kind of smaller. But it was for the Academy, and because all these things are sent out to Academy members beforehand. And so one was for Deadpool by these guys have done a lot now. Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. They had wrote the script, and the studio was so confident in it, they submitted it for a screenplay, and I believe it was on the short list for before. I don't think eventually it was on the final thing. I can look real quick, but anyway, it was potentially up for Academy Award just because it was so unique and different. Again, it didn't do it. But I bring that up also to tell you this is that I read a good chunk of the script, and a lot of the success of Deadpool is Ryan Reynolds riffing and coming up with stuff on the fly because there's so much it's different from the script that was submitted to the final product. And I mean, Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds is the driving de facto reason for the success of these movies. And I think in Deadpool 1 he was a producer, but going forward he was a producer on these. And really heavy. I would say he absolutely had more power than Sean Levy did for Deadpool and Wolverine, even though Sean Levy was the director, 100%. So anyway,
it's interesting. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. like because the humor of Deadpool feels very improv-y humor almost. Like I bet that was a really fun set to be on. Like in terms of just like, guys, I just had an idea. What if you did that? You know what I mean? Like that kind of environment where you're just like cracking yourself up with ideas. You know what I mean? Sure. Right. Because what if it doesn't work? But like just like that makes a lot of it makes a lot of sense, because a lot of those things, it's like any of those jokes are like physical based. He's like poking someone, or like, you know what I mean? He's doing like silly things, and those are harder to come up with than maybe in a script. Like I feel like versus like being on set, you're just like, what if I did this? You know what I mean? Yeah. And I just think that, and
well, just even little things like when he gets shot in the ass and he's like on the ground and his gun like flips up and like right between his ass and shoots. You know, it's like little stuff like the comedy of that is pretty brilliant. But
it feels very improv-y, like just like random almost. Where it's just like, who thought of that? And why? Like that was just a random thought someone said. Like, what if it just came out of there and shot? And like, okay, let's do it. You know?
Yeah, I think I would have a hard time coming up with some of the things they come up with on this, which is a compliment to them. I will say this too: the benefit too of having this is also one of the first movies I ever did this, which I think all superhero movies should do this. But the mask, the eyes emote, right?
Yeah.
We've always had costumes where, of course, it didn't emote because it's kind of makes breaking this fourth wall sort of thing.
Until Spider-Man, they fixed it with technology.
They did, but that was because of Deadpool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They saw that in Deadpool. They said, "Hey, how can we do this, but like make it grounded?" And so anyway, that to me it's awesome. And having that's great, but then also having the mask on allows them, and also CGI in the face and expressions and stuff, they can do tons of ADR in post to come up with even funnier things or what's working.
That's true.
I can imagine how many tests they did with audiences or friends or family, whatever.
Or how many jokes got left on the cutting room floor. Yeah. Right? Like how many things did they try that just, hey, this doesn't work in post. So I mean, I think you're right in that, like the fact that they were able to get so many funny jokes and it just like is constantly happening, and like sometimes they're subtle and sometimes they're very obvious, the jokes, but they're just kind of, it's like, it feels like one of those comedies that I find like reminds me of like Tina Fey comedies, right? Where it's just like, they're constantly throwing jokes at you. If you aren't paying attention, you might miss a really funny joke, and they're not going to just spotlight it and be like, here's the joke, here's the space to laugh. You know what I mean? They're just going to like throw a joke in right before the end of the scene. You know what I mean? Or something where it's just like, it's there. It like, the more you pay attention, the more you're rewarded for that. And I think Deadpool's the same way, where it's just constantly doing little things, and he's making little quips, or like the McAfee, you know, Patrick Stewart quip is real small and real short and doesn't really like highlight it. It's got such a good pace and such a good there's like that energy to it. You know what I mean? It's like, it just is like the movie does not stall. It doesn't get slow. It doesn't let you get bored. It's just kind of, we're on to the next thing. We're on to the next thing. We're on to the next thing. And there's always jokes happening. So yeah, it's impressive that they nailed that so well.
No, it's super impressive. And I also think, and you mentioned this earlier, the movie surprised you in the way of like, it's a self-contained objective, right?
Yes.
And I think also it's very helpful for this kind of movie. Obviously the humor, the gore, the sex and superhero film, that was pre The Boys, pre Invincible, all those kind of things, right?
And actually feels kind of mild compared to those. Like,
it does honestly, now.
Deadpool 1 feels kind of like, this is like PG-13 shit. I mean, I know it's technically not, but it honestly feels a little bit like when you've seen like,
compared to The Boys,
yeah.
We've talked
The Boys has completely desensitized us to all those things.
It really has, yeah, and not in a good way, like in a way that feels it's just literally just happening just because they feel like they have to make a quota and not because it serves the narrative in any meaningful way,
or because they can't think of a good story to tell, so they just put shit like that in because they know sex sells. And if you just are edgy enough, people will think it's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to bring up the fact that I think it's interesting also that this is, like you said, a superhero movie, but it's an origin story, but it's told in a way that is a little more interesting than say Just like Spider-Man, first act he's gets his power, second act he's trying it out, third
Right.
act he's
Right.
saving the day. This one is, and it's smart too because the idea of using a meta mechanic, he can it's like
Yes.
it's literally
He's
he can talk to
narrating.
you. He's
Yeah.
narrating, and
Yeah.
so that plus the flashbacks and those kind of things, it all meshes together so well. And
Yes.
I think the movie would lose a lot of its charm if it was told in a traditional format.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. I didn't even think about that. That the fact that they what feels like a cliche, right? Like the whole movie's going to be going back and forth between flashbacks. You tell me that on paper, that sounds disgusting. I don't want that. Don't do that
Right.
to me, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it's
It does.
Deadpool, the fact that he can talk to us when he transitions, and that's some of the funniest parts. Like, all right, let's go back here, and like when we come back to
Yeah.
the present, you know what I mean? Like, and then
Yeah,
he
yeah.
like, and then we take another break, and it just feels so intentional. It doesn't feel like lazy storytelling. It feels like, no, this is perfect for who Deadpool is and how he breaks the fourth wall. And again, I just want to say, like, in so many other movies, like, I'll compare this to an origin story I didn't love, Doctor Strange. You know what I mean? Where it just felt like we rushed. It was so cookie cutter origin story where it's just like you said, the first act is him getting his powers, the middle act is him figuring out, the last act is him saving the world. That's the typical origin story, right? And so the fact that it didn't do that was so refreshing, right? Like when I'm first watching it, I'm thinking, okay, this is the opening fight sequence. This is just where we do the credits, and they do the credits, but which the credits also were hilarious.
Which are brilliant.
And I didn't even notice it first. At first, I'm just kind of like, you see credits, and you're just not even looking at them because like you're so trained to it. No, but then you start, you're like, wait, what does that say? You know what I mean?
He also uses, and this hurts me a little bit, but I also respect it a lot. But they make fun of Green Lantern so many times. But like if you look in the beginning, there's like a wallet, and it's like Ryan Reynolds holding like a Green Lantern ring or something. Like it's flat, so there's so many little things. It's brilliant. But yeah, it's like that like two ass hats or the directors or whatever.
Yes,
the writers,
Yeah,
stuff
the right, like
the real
like,
hero. Yeah.
The real heroes, the writers. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but like when you're starting to watch that, you're thinking, okay, this is the opening action sequence. Then when you flash back, you're like, okay, we're just gonna get his powers now, and then we're gonna go back to the future, and then it's gonna be like stakes, big world. Gotta save it. And the fact that it just keeps going back to that same action sequence that you started in, which feels again like so not normal. Like we're staying in the same action sequence for 3/4 of the movie or half the movie.
Well,
You know what I mean?
literally
And just-
right now, Deadpool just fell into the back of the truck after he cut his arm off.
Yeah.
And we're literally at like a few minutes over halfway. So there's 46 minutes. Yeah.
And it's like in what they really draw out. I mean, like that whole sequence could have taken place in like 5 minutes if they cut it all together. You know what I mean? And the fact that they drew it out, but it doesn't feel like they're doing that because they don't have the budget or they had to like cut corners or you know what I mean? Like, and again, in theory, you're like, okay, there's going to be one action sequence that's flashbacked and forth for like 3/4 of the movie. You're like, no, why would you do that? That doesn't sound good, but they nail it. And I think, it makes it stand out even more, I think, just from your typical superhero origin movies and just superhero movies. Yeah, man, I have there's so many good things to say about it. It's just such a.
He just said a fourth wall break. It's not a fourth wall break. That's like 16 walls.
Yeah,
that's so good. That's
good.
how. Yeah, I didn't even hear. I saw his mouth moving and I knew what he was saying.
And it's just
yeah,
and the jokes are so stupid in a funny way, like in that way. You know what I mean? Where it's just like
I know
they're so cheesy, but like Deadpool in some ways is like the ultimate dad joker, but he's like also so gory and vulgar that it comes off more cool than dad jokey in a way. But so many of jokes are just like, that was stupid. You know what I mean? Like, but gosh.
Well, one thing too,
we're
talking about the movie, and of course it's meta-ness. To kind of go even more meta with that is that a big part of the success of this movie, and as people are seeing now, which I think honestly, it's much more tamer than what Deadpool 1 and 2, Deadpool Wolverine, but the marketing.
It's really
there was a point, I think this might have been Deadpool 2, but Walmart, they always release like the same fucking movies every 6 months with like a new cover, which just hurts me because I want to buy them all.
Sure.
But like they literally release like 40 classic 20th Century Fox movies, but Deadpool was the character on the cover instead of the main character. It was like,
I remember that. Yes,
like Predator,
There were
but
alternate covers.
but it's all Deadpool, and you're like, this is brilliant. Like
Yes.
that is next level brilliant.
Yes.
So like
Yes.
that plus
Well, and
all
then,
the
like,
jokes and
The Valentine. I remember there was like
On the
some
rug.
Valentine's message you could download that like was like inviting your loved one to a romantic movie, but it like doesn't mention Deadpool. Like basically giving you materials to trick your girlfriend into going to Deadpool on Valentine's Day.
Yeah. So like all of that is just brilliant, and so and it
feels
adds
so in line. Like you're talking about the fourth wall breaking. He's on other freaking movie covers. Like but that also feels canon.
It feels canon.
Like it feels
We're
like
in
the
the Deadpool
movie's
universe.
bleeding out into reality. And I think that's again like having a character like Deadpool where his thing is breaking the fourth wall. That's one of just the cornerstones of his personality.
Yeah.
You can do things like this that no other character it works for. You know what I mean? And I think that again is like, what the fuck are they going to be doing in this Wolverine Deadpool movie? Like, I mean, like the amount of freedom they probably had on this movie versus the other movies. I'm sure the budget for this one is much higher than both of the other ones. Like astronomically higher.
Probably at least double or 2.5 this movie. So at least it has to be a $200 million movie.
At least.
And the thing is, if Deadpool Wolverine is good, if it's good, it will guarantee make $1 billion. It's already supposed to make it's supposed to be the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time, opening weekend. Yeah. And
just from pre-sales.
It will make at least internationally total make $250 to $300 million open weekend just overall. It's pretty big for a rated R movie. It's huge.
It's huge, and I think it helps. I mean, obviously Hugh Jackman helps. Everyone loves Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. I don't think anyone has ever, as all the problems we've had with X-Men movies, no one's ever slighted Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. The only critique anyone I've ever heard that I'm like fair, but I don't care, is that he's too tall. But I don't care. He's Wolverine. And I think some people are like, no, Wolverine needs to be short, and that's part of his thing. And I'm like, no, it's Hugh Jackman. It's Hugh Jackman.
People who said that, it was a complaint in the beginning, of course.
Sure.
But I mean, as someone who's a fan of all the mediums of it, it's something I never cared really to begin with. But that's something that Hugh Jackman is so good. Who fucking cares how tall he is, or how short he is?
And he is that character. And so I mean, like, and Hugh Jackman is good at comedy. I think, he's so often put in these like serious roles, but he's got a good banter and back and forth, and like, what I mean? And he's going to be, because he's obviously going to be like the straight man of this movie. And then there's Deadpool, the cut up, right? The jokester. And so it's just like, it really does sound like a match made in heaven. And I know, like, we were all freaking out, like, when this was announced, and like it was all these like, it was a big deal because Hugh Jackman said, I was done with the character after Logan, and now he's coming back. And I remember the announcement. I remember Ryan Reynolds just like sitting on his couch and then talking about it, and he's like saying, and then like Hugh Jackman just walks by the back and he goes, hey, you want to be in this movie? And he's like, sure, and just keeps going.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant.
And
we lost our minds. That was like one of the biggest news days in a long time. I told Kimberly the only thing I want to do for my birthday this weekend on Saturday, I want to force her to watch Logan with me on Saturday. So that's my birthday present to me, is watching that. So with me, and I would recommend watching. You don't have to, of course. You've seen Logan however many times now, but canonically, it goes Deadpool, Logan, then Deadpool 2. So
okay. Okay. Interesting. How does that I mean,
it's a very subtle thing. It's a joke. Not really, but you need to, but it does make sense once you see it. You will understand what I'm talking about.
So they reference Logan in Deadpool 2, I'm assuming. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in a big way.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that sounds fun. I mean, I don't need excuses to watch more Logan. I can.
Right. I'm going to watch it anyway because I'm just going to watch it before the Deadpool Wolverine.
But
the only downside is it's so good. I might have to and I'm like, oh, should I watch this before Deadpool Wolverine? Anyway.
Well, the thing that's interesting. I didn't realize. I was assuming that Logan was just like an alternate timeline because it's like decades in the future, and like
it is well. But Deadpool references all timelines.
Yeah, right. So, and so like, I wasn't knowing now that like Logan that we're going to be getting in Deadpool Wolverine is gonna be the Logan from Logan.
We don't know that 100%.
Okay.
We don't know that.
Yeah, okay. But it could. I mean, like they're going to reference it somehow. I guess I wasn't, because in my mind, I know that they're technically connected, but it's because Deadpool feels so unique. It just kind of felt like its own branch of the universe a little bit. You know what I mean?
It is. I mean, the Fox timeline is as they would say, fucked. It makes
Yeah.
it makes no sense.
But like,
at
is he
all.
so he's officially his own little timeline. He's not officially in the Stewart timeline or the McAfee timeline.
There's no version where if you, even with Days of Future Past, where you do all the back explaining
The
of
connect,
stuff,
they're all the same
it,
kind of thing.
it still doesn't work. It still
Right.
is broken.
Yeah.
And so then the answer to that is multiverse. That's how you fix it. And we now
Sure.
have that with MCU. I think I think Deadpool obviously is its own separate third timeline. But I suspect, I could be wrong, but the Logan in Deadpool Wolverine is his own. It's a new version we've
A
never
new
seen
version of
before.
him. Like,
Because
I could almost see him like coming from the cartoon. Like there's a version of it where he gets like, because of the yellow suit, gets like
maybe
imported from the '90s show or something. I actually don't think that'll probably happen, but like I could see something like that going
Well,
on.
there's that, we know that this Wolverine failed in his timeline. And you would
Okay.
think, oh, it's Logan.
How do we know
Because
that?
in the trailer, he's like, this Logan failed. Like everyone he cared
Okay.
about is lost. And in the movie Logan,
That's true.
we know
Besides
that
his daughter.
Patrick Stewart basically lost control of his powers and killed all the mutants. Is from what I think it's inferred, right?
Yeah.
And so, interestingly enough, in the comics, Old Man Logan, Mysterio tricks Wolverine into thinking there's like all these villains, and Wolverine slaughters all the X-Men. And so that's his, which is much more harder to deal with, obviously. And also,
Yeah.
but when Logan came out, then this was before MCU, right? This was still
Sure,
20th Century
sure.
Fox. So I don't know. There's a version now where this Deadpool or this Wolverine is in a different version of MCU where he slaughtered, like there's Mysterio with Jake Gyllenhaal, and he slaughters all these MCU heroes. I mean, there's a version of that where he's from
cool
a version
scene.
of yeah, it'd be cool. So there's a version of that, and now the other version is, in the trailer he's like dropping to his knees. There's all these tombstones, and it's like he failed his timeline. That it is just that Patrick Stewart killed them all, and that he couldn't stop Patrick Stewart from doing it. This is before he's older. This is like before Logan, and he's plucked
So it
from the
just
timeline
goes
before then.
Yeah.
There's a version. I just don't know. No one knows. No one knows.
And it's a weird thing where like there's a certain school of thought that says, well, if he's coming from Logan the movie where we watched it, maybe that's easier to follow, kind of thing for the audiences, because it's like then you can really just watch it. Oh no, Logan is a part of this timeline. You watch that, this will make more sense, kind of thing. But because we're at this point in the MCU where all the timelines are converging and crashing and all this kind of thing, they could go either way and probably make it work. You know what I mean?
Well, they've only showed the first 30 minutes of recently in a Chinese premiere fan event, also at CinemaCon. They've only shown the first 30 minutes of this movie, and
it's already shown the first 30 minutes of Deadpool Wolverine.
Yeah, they showed it at CinemaCon like 2 months ago.
30 minutes though? They showed the first. That seems. I don't feel like I've heard of movies showing like. I mean, Nolan movies when you play the first 10-minute sequence, that felt like a lot to put out before the movie.
I mean, there are spoilers out right now of Deadpool Wolverine.
Gotcha.
I have not looked at them. I do not want to look at them. Period. No. I will go dark starting in a week and a half on the internet. Period. So, but I think we're in for a lot of surprises. Again, if I see Wesley Snipes' Blade, I will poo myself in the theater. So it will happen. We already know we're getting Elektra from Daredevil. I would love it if Ben Affleck was in there too, but I would be surprised.
Yeah, I remember there was like rumors of him being photographed on set or something. So
yeah. I mean, his wife's in it, or ex-wife's in it. But one thing I want to talk about before we dive more into Deadpool Wolverine is we talk about the structure, talk about the jokes, the improv, all these things. And the one thing I think that is surprising about Deadpool, and this carries on into Deadpool too, and I think in a big way too, is the heart behind the character and the heart behind his relationship with I can't think of her name now.
Yeah,
The main girl, and I love the relationship. That's
Vanessa.
something that's Vanessa. That's not in the comics, I don't believe. I think she's in the comics, but something else. But it is, man. I there's some good things about Deadpool 2. I can't say yet, but
Mm,
there is I like it. I like the heart. I like the romance, and
yeah.
that's one thing I feel like most of these superhero movies have kind of steered away from is the romance B plot.
Mm,
Um, you know, it's there in some way, kind of, but think about it. I mean, look at
yeah.
what's the last few we've had. I mean, kind of a little bit in. Um, I mean, obviously in Spider-Man: No Way Home, there's
Spider-Man's
the
the one. Spider-Man,
it-
that's always a but that's central to
it's
his
a
character.
constant. It's central to his
Spider-Man and
character,
Mary Jane is a part of Spider-Man, and if you don't have Mary
right?
Jane, it doesn't feel like Spider-Man. So
Right.
that like you obligated to have that plot line
Yeah.
if you're doing a Spider-Man.
There's not really one in Shang-Chi. The Eternals, there's a little
No,
bit in the Eternals, but it's not really a forefront in that
there's
movie.
several romances in that movie.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's why it doesn't feel as prominent because there's so many. There's like a two or
That's
three
just
of
a
them, but they're
weird ass movie. That's what that is.
I saw some footage the other day of it, and I was like, "Whoa, this movie exists!" I forgot about this movie existing, and
It's such a weird
interesting,
movie, man. Such a weird movie.
interesting. But then you look at all the Disney Plus shows. WandaVision, it's obviously central, but not in like a pursuing way, in like a trying to reclaim it way.
Sure,
Not one of Falcon Winter Soldier. She-Hulk, it's more of a gag. It's not really a real thing. Miss Marvel, not really either.
she's too young.
Moon Knight, there is a romance there, but it's again, it's not really about pursuing again. It's about just like they used to
Yeah,
have
wasn't she
one.
his ex-wife or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she is
yeah,
his wife in
yeah.
the show.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but if it's a strange anyway, it's there, but like it's not like the same or this one. It feels like they're trying to rekindle something.
Sure,
It
sure,
feels kind of old school in a way. And again, this movie is 8 years old now.
sure.
Um, which is kind of wild thinking about that. Anyway, I like the I just like the structure of it, and I like the heart behind it, and I like that
Yeah,
he's a character who, I mean, even just the dark parts of it, where it's like he's being tortured, and he's like
yeah.
he's found this friend,
Hmm.
and like and they're riffing on each other, and they're just trying to use humor as the way to cope with the being tortured.
Yeah.
And I mean, all those things. I think, seeing her in the rain. Also, rain is always a good idea for any scene ever in any movie. So anyway, I like it a lot. And Deadpool
Yeah,
2 goes a good way that too. And Deadpool 3 will also do that because he's trying to save his timeline because he cares about his friends.
sure.
Um, which is there's a lot of implications for Deadpool 3 and what that can mean for man, dude, that movie. I'm afraid it's not gonna live up to the hype.
Hmm.
First of all, if Wolverine wears the mask, and he will, then that will be enough for me for the price of
Sure.
admission. My fear is that the wider public or audience will not love it, and it will hurt the MCU in the long run.
Hmm.
I will say Deadpool 2 is not probably as good as Deadpool 1. It feels a little too long.
Okay.
And the
I am
benefit
excited
of
about the
this,
other character. I mean, like Zazie Beetz is in it, which is fun because I've worked with her a little bit a long
yeah.
time ago at the Hot Docs Festival. Hot Docs. Um,
Oh wow, look at
yeah,
that.
I'm
Yeah.
wearing the shirt. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, um, and then obviously Josh Brolin is fucking Josh Brolin. So yes. So I mean,
Josh Brolin's great in it.
I'm sure that's like just having more characters for him to interact with is fun. It's got to be fun.
There's some fun stuff in it. Again, it's not. I think the first one is just because it's tighter.
Yeah,
And
I'm expecting the stakes have to get bigger, and I think there's pros and cons. Like in some ways, Deadpool 2, I'm assuming, might feel more like a little bit more of a normal superhero movie, just in that like I'm sure they're trying to save
there's no
part of the
flashback
world,
kind of stuff.
or like you know what I mean,
Kind of.
or
It's in a way, but not really. Also,
okay, okay.
it's interesting. I want to watch it right now because
I do too.
I didn't
Goddamn.
watch it. I didn't watch it last year, but I've seen it quite a few times. But
It's
I want to take a.
on Max or Hulu. It's weird. It's like one of them's on one and one of them's on the
Disney.
other.
It's on Disney Plus.
Oh,
Both of them are on
that's
Disney
right.
Plus.
You're right. That's right. Yeah,
Disney
I forgot.
baby.
That's where
That's
I
how I'm
watched
watching it
it
right
actually,
now. Yeah,
which honestly feels strange.
it
Booting
is.
up Disney Plus and watching Deadpool say the F word and shit.
Yeah, it's super weird. But anyway, yeah. So I'm curious. I'm more curious about your thoughts on Deadpool 2 than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I want to ask you, what's your favorite part of Deadpool 1? Favorite gag moment, what does it for you? Maximum
I
effort. What
really
was it?
like when they go in the X mansion and they do kind of when they're just ragging on the X-Men, and
The
anytime he's
budget's
kind
too low.
yes, like yes, yeah,
Yeah.
like why are you the only two here? Like
Yeah.
kind of shit,
Brilliant.
And then like the chick, I don't even like what was her she was,
Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
which is a really fun name actually. I think that's a really fun name, and I think like oh that name made me more interested in her. But
Yeah.
she's also just this like we all know Colossus. Everyone knows Colossus. He was like a main X-Men, but then her, and it's like, and I think they make jokes about her, like who's heard of this character
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
So any and all of that stuff, like whenever they're just kind of like, and the McAfee jokes, like anytime that they're referencing the other universes, and like making fun of them, it just makes me smile and I just eat it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just feels so like yes, this is so fun. Like this is just fun. It feels like you're playing with these worlds that I've played with in my head, and just in a way of like what sounds the most fun. Not you know what I mean? Like in just kind of like a kid way almost. Like, um, so it just all of that I really loved. I loved the relationship between Colossus and Deadpool, and Colossus trying to be this kind of like
Yeah.
big brother, tell him
Yeah.
what to
3 or
do.
4 moments. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like
Yeah.
trying to give him this like life advice
Yeah.
and shit, and like it's just
I,
like
I
that.
love when I love when he killed him. He's like, I'll be able to look out for those other 3 or 4 moments. Like which is
Yes.
great. I like when he takes his mask off and there's Hugh Jackman's face. Like which means that he was wearing that staple to his face and the mask on top for the whole entire
Yes,
fight.
yes,
Like
yes,
that's what,
yes,
which is
yes.
retroactively it makes the whole thing kind of funnier.
It
So
does, yes. Uh,
um,
yeah, it's just honestly, there's so much to. I feel like I need to watch it again and then look for more of them to pick out because I feel like
yeah,
it's again they're throwing so much at me so constantly. Even just, I mean, I watched it a couple weeks ago and I've only seen it once, and I'm like, I'm already like, I think I've forgotten some of the jokes. I need to watch it again. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. Well, again, it's very rewatchable and it's just fun. It's just a fun movie, and the action's
It is.
really good. Like
It
it's
is.
well
It feels
choreographed.
visceral. It feels bloody and gory, but like again, I feel like I'm like it's not too much. Which I'm while I think of that, I'm like the boys. It's not the boys.
Yeah,
It's so weird to watch this and feel like, oh, they showed restraint.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. At the time, it was it kind of, but
No, yeah, I mean,
one
like what? Yeah, in 2016, it was a different world, and so that makes sense. But yeah.
one fun little tidbit here. If you notice at the end of the final fight, there actually that's a helicarrier.
Okay.
That is up there, and when they didn't have the rights to that was Marvel Studios because they were in the Avengers. It's a shield thing,
Okay. Oh,
and
okay.
they just did it, and so it just kind of is this weird. I
And
don't
they
know.
just wonder, and I guess Marvel just never made a fuss about it.
I guess
Which,
so. It was a year
which,
after the Avengers came out.
if your movie makes 700 million, maybe you can't. Maybe you can't make
Yeah, I
too
mean
much. I mean,
that's
it would be really bad PR for Marvel to like try to like legally take down a really popular movie that everyone loved.
yeah. Well, they're playing. Marvel was always playing the long game. I mean, they say
Sure, I'm sure
they didn't expect it. I'm like, someone expected at some point they were going to getting the X-Men rights back at some point in time.
Oh yeah, no, that was
Um,
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. My mom, she never saw it until just I think same like a week or two ago. She watched it for
What?
the first time because it's not her thing. She doesn't like watch movies that a lot of cussing,
Sure,
a lot of blood, sexual stuff like
sure.
that. It's not her thing. And she texted me 2 days ago. She said she watched Deadpool 1 and she loved it.
Wow.
And she said that he is so funny. And I was like, you liked the movie? Like it blew my mind.
Yeah, I
And
might need
so
to
she
show it
said,
to my mom. Honestly, I think she might like it.
yeah, that's
It might
awesome.
be the only
Well,
movie superhero movie she would be into.
really? Wow. So, my mom said that she goes, I gotta watch Deadpool 2 now before we go because she's gonna be
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
us at Deadpool Wolverine. She's I'm gonna before we watch Deadpool Wolverine, I'm just like, that's so wild. It's a wild scenario to me. Camille, on the
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
hand, we watched it. I watched it with me like last year, I think, or earlier this year. I think it was last year. And maybe it was earlier this year. And she essentially was like, I don't know, I don't think she loved it. It's not really her kind of thing. It's a superhero
Sure.
movie, but then it was kind of this growth. She doesn't really like gore either. But I'm going to force her to watch Deadpool 2 with me also pretty soon. So
Nice.
I'm excited to rewatch Deadpool 2. I'm more
Yep.
excited for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh yeah.
And I think I can talk more about the overarching thing because there's some interesting stuff that ties directly into Deadpool and Wolverine from Deadpool 2. that you will
Yep.
things will click for you just a little bit more when you watch that movie.
I'm excited.
And it was by accident too. It was by total accident that it worked out this way. Anyway, Daniel, how can our listeners write into us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/241mail and let us know what you think of Deadpool 1 or what you are excited about for Deadpool and Wolverine. We are very excited. I'm sure that you are. Let us know your thoughts at bit.ly/241mail.
And if you can't hit us up at our Bitly, you can always find us in the comment section below, youtube.com/@241studios. Again, guys, it's the best place to consume all the content. It's nice doing these. I like doing these retro reviews, especially on movies that I enjoy. I would love to do this more often with some of these older superhero movies, and maybe like X-Men 1, X-Men 2. Again, I've talked to David Hayter, the writer of X-Men 1 and Co. of 2 earlier this year, and he seemed open to the idea of coming on and discussing those films with us.
That would be
awesome. So maybe we need to revisit that. I don't know.
Really cool.
It would be cool. Yeah. My name is Donovan Thompson.
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
And we have spoken.